Hey there, James. Hoping to have a great trip today. Sorry you couldn't be here in person for your last lesson, but looking forward to getting you back in the studio when life slows down a little bit. Hopefully, you've learned a little bit since joining the studio a while ago, and there's much more to the story. So as soon as you get bored with the information that you got, trust me, there is a lot more that I still haven't finished it yet myself. I'm still on the path. So awesome, man. So see here, two things I want to talk about. Big two things I want to talk about. Concept ideas, things that are going to take you through and hopefully give you a lot of mileage on things that you already can play and things for the future that you haven't played yet. So number one is just a review of the root 6, root 5 concept in the musical alphabet. Why is it so important that you should know the notes on the 6th string and 5th string? And what does that have to do with your future growth as a guitar player? Is that a lot of times I see when someone comes in a whole lot of what I call polywinner crackers. Like they learned something kind of cool online. They're not sure what it does or what it is, but they can sure play it, and they don't know how to apply it to anything else. It's like a one concept thing that they know, but they don't know like how it works or like any other situations would it also be applicable to. A lot of times that's like scale work and technique and things like that. And root 5, root 6, it's sort of like the key, and the second thing I'm going to talk about too, it's really the key that opens this whole thing up. After someone kind of gets past power chords and can start doing bar chords, that's when we start moving around the neck and not always play the same thing the same way every single time. And the first thing to do is get root 6, root 5. So that's musical alphabet. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, and G sharp, right? So that would be something that I would lock in my head 100%. You should know that stone cold. Someone should be able to shake you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. You go, quick, what's the musical alphabet forwards and backwards? And you should be able to rattle that off, no problem. That'll help accelerate you getting around this fretboard and playing other shapes. Or they can look at a tab online and go, oh, that's how you play that C chord, the B chord, or whatever. And why? Wait a minute, is the song says C in the chord chart, but then if I look at the tabs, like why is he playing C? Like why is this over here? Why is that C? That's the first thing that I would do. And you simply practice. The way I did it was I would sit in my room after practicing all day. I would practice at night, and I wouldn't have the guitar on. I wouldn't have the amp on. I would just be practicing like E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. And I go, okay, can I do the A's real quick? A, right? Things like that are good to practice. So really know those two strings really well, the 5th string and the 6th string. Because that brings me to point number 2, which is a huge topic, and it takes a while for someone to wrap their head around it, what it can do, and the implications are far-reaching. My advanced students work on cage system, and it never really goes away. If someone comes in here and says, hey Doug, teach me how to play fingerstyle acoustic guitar like the style like William Ackerman or Alex Agrassi or something like that, that's straight up cage system. Right, it's cage system on steroids, but it's cage system. If someone walks in the room and says, hey Doug, I want to learn how to play jazz, guess what? It's a cage system. You need to know it. If someone walks in the room and says, hey Doug, I really like that Jerry Garcia jam band kind of stuff. I really dig that. How do you do that? Guess what? It's the cage system. All right, so it's far reaching. So I'll get off my soapbox and explain what it is. So it's a system of finding all the chords across the neck. Right? All the triad chords. So there's a lot of variations on chords. This is the basic triad chords, the chords you see in rock songs like G, D, E minor, C, right? Things like that. And the thing we have for it is caged. What cage refers to are the open position chords of the guitar. So C, A, G, or I'll play G like this right here because that's how the system works. G, E, and D. It spells the word caged. Now, how do you apply that? Is that you have first the chord C right here. Now, that chord has a root note to it. That root note tells us what the letter name of the chord is. Is it C? Is it D? Is it E? Is it F? Is it G? What is it? Right? It will always be major. This C chord, this shape here, will always be major. Unless I change tuning the guitar or something weird, it's always going to be major. So I play this chord, string 5 down to 1. That is a strip C chord. Any guitar book and you'll see that's a C chord. Now, there's one note in here that rules them all. That is the root note, the home base note of the chord, like I said just a second ago, the one that tells us the name of the chord, the letter name. Not if it's major or minor, but if it's the letter name of the chord. And if I'm not playing the sixth string right here, so that reduces our possibilities down to one, which is the fifth string right here. So when I play this chord and I play that fifth string, this note here is C all day long. It is a C chord because that note, one of the reasons is because that note is a C. Now the cool thing about this is that this is a template that can move around. I'm going to refinger this chord here, right here. It'll look like this. It's still the same frets. I'm pushing the same frets down, right? I just changed up my fingering a little bit. And if I take this chord and I move it up a fret and put my bar right here, it is no longer a C chord. It's a C form. It looks like a C chord. It's a template. I call it C form. It's a C template. It looks like a C chord, but it's no longer sounding as a C chord. So a piano player or whatever instrument, they have perfect pitch, and they walk past my room and they hear me play this chord. They go, hey, Doug's playing a C sharp chord, right? So I've gone here from C, right? I'm gonna finger it like this. There's your C right there. I'm gonna bump this up a fret. This note now is on the C sharp. It's a C sharp chord. If I bump this up another fret, I've gone C sharp to D. That is a D chord. It sounds like a D chord, but what does it look like? It looks like a C chord because that's the template shape I'm using. Right? So that's why this is so important, because basically you take those 5 chords and you take all the 12 notes of the chromatic scale of the musical alphabet. What is that? 12 times 5 is a lot. Like 8 million something, I don't know. But all joking aside is that if I play this chord here, the shape here, it doesn't sound like a C chord anymore, but it's a C shape. I'm using the template of Caged, this template shape right here. I'm moving it around the fretboard, and whatever note this is a root 5 chord. It will always, the C form will always be root 5. It will always be root 5. It will never be root 6 because this root note does not change. It will not all of a sudden magically become minor. That's something different. This chord will always be major. It will always be a root 5. That is, those two won't ever change unless you do something wacky with this thing, which you're not going to do, right? This chord right here is a D chord. It sounds like a D chord, but it looks like a C chord because it's a C form, but sounding like a D chord. I'll prove it to you. I'm gonna play a D chord, your standard D chord that you know how to play. I'm gonna play that in my looper here, okay? Watch this. It works. It's the same thing. It is a D chord. It sounds like a D chord, but it looks like a C chord because I'm using that template shape. That is why you have to have root 6 and root 5 stone cold. Because if you're confused on that, if you go to try to use this system of learning chords across the fretboard, you're going to get confused yourself. Right? You get confused really easily. You'll go, okay, is that a C or is that a D? You have to have musical alphabet stone cold in your mind. That's why that's the first thing you walked in this room and you were doing power chords. We need to know root 6, root 5 musical alphabet, right? Because that's how you open up. That's how power chords are working. Right? That's how we can move the octave box around. You know what octave box you're using. Now, that was one example of a caged chord. Now, if I go to the next letter in caged, in the letter A, if I go through and check all these strings right here, root 6, root 5, I'm not playing root 6, so that reduces our options down to 1. That means that A form is a root 5 chord. The home bass note is on the 5th string. That will never change. This chord will not magically become minor because I'm moving it around. It will not magically become a root 6 chord because I'm moving around. It is always root 5. It is always a major chord. Period. End of discussion. If you want it to be minor, you have to use a different shape for that. A chord, right? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to move it up a fret and then put my bar down. A sharp, because it's a root 5, that note is A sharp right there. I'm going to move it up another fret. It's a B chord now because this note is B. I'm going to move it up another fret. This is a C chord. Wait a minute, what? it's an A form. It looks like an A. It looks like an A because of this shape right here. But since I changed its position on the fretboard, movable template, A form means it's a template. I move up here to the 3rd fret. It's not all of a sudden magically root 5. It's not all of a sudden magically minor, right? It's always going to be major. That's the big point of confusion. That's why I'm making a big deal about it. Because when I teach this concept to people who watch videos on it online, I think sometimes the people who teach the concept, they totally understand it. But in the real world of teaching other people how to use this system, the biggest questions I get is, wait a minute, Doug, does it change to root 5 all of a sudden or root 6 all of a sudden? Is it major or is it minor? It will always be major. This shape will always be major. It will always be root 5. That will never change. Like I said, that's the biggest point of confusion I come across when working in the system. So I just said that this is a C chord right here, right? I'm gonna play this C chord here. Put that in my looper. See, no smoke mirrors, it is a C chord. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here, so A sharp, B, C. Right? It is a C chord. It sounds like a C chord, but the fingering looks like an A chord, so therefore we say it is an A form C chord. It looks like an A, but to our ears, and if Dr. Tom walks by here and has perfect pitch and doesn't see my fingers, he's like, oh, Doug's playing a C chord. He's not like, oh, Doug's playing an A form C chord. He doesn't know that. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But he's not a guitar player. But he's playing. But I'm playing that chord right there. It sounds like a C chord. So what does that mean then across the fretboard? And this is a disclaimer I like to put in here. I put it right down here because it's very important. Don't do them all at once. Get really good with one shape across the fretboard. Do a song that has a D chord in it and see if the easiest one to do is the E form. That's the one that looks like this. That's the one that looks like your F chord right here, like the one that most people start with, right? Right? So that's the first one people usually start with. When I play this E form chord, like I said, I would recommend going from E or an E first, and then or an A afterwards. And then come back and see me and then do the C form because there's exercises you have to do to be able to play these chord shapes efficiently. So E form, if I play this E chord right here, right? Let's check our strings to see what root this is. Let's see here. Oh, that's an open E. Oh my gosh, there's the root note. It's an open string. It's an open E. Therefore, we can say E form, the template E, is a root 6 chord. That will never change. It will not all of a sudden become magically minor out of the blue. That will not happen. I'm gonna play this chord here. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, then C. C form, C chord. A form, C chord. G form, C chord. E form, C chord. D form, C chord. Back to C. If you notice what I did there, C, A, G, E, D spells caged, and it moves up the fretboard. And depending on what chord you're doing, you can do this with any major chord. It'll work. There's a minor set of these two, but I figured it would not be a good idea to confuse you with too much all at once. That was a ton of information right there. So that's the overview of caged. Like I said, don't do them all at once. Get good with one of them. And when you get good with one of them, then you add a second one. Start with E, start with A. Then the next step will be to do the minor versions of those, the minor caged templates, right? Then you do your minor E minor form, and then your A minor form. And then you circle back around again, you do some more of the majors, you do a couple of the minors. And that process, depending on the student, could take years to get it fully under your fingers, Right? Now, how to use this, say if I take a song that does this. Say if I take a song and it's doing like, I don't know, let's do C to D, right? So it's going like this. Oh, that's like a better example. Let's do this one. Like Jane says, Jane's Addiction, it's 2 chords. This is it's A and G, just back and forth, right? So I can play an A chord right here, and then go to an E form, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Oh, wait a minute, G, A. Right? Take a song that you know and see if you can go back and forth between the E form cage chord. That's what I would do with it. Take a song you already know and see if you can turn them into bar chord cage chords. Like I said, that's a huge topic right there. And then the things are far-reaching with this. So say, for example, if I play like the C chord right there, I use that. Right, if I want to play that Hendrix style, that's all cage chord, man. That's more advanced cage chord system, but you see where it goes is that if you want to play like Hendrix, if you want to play like David Gilmour, if you want to solo like Jerry Garcia, Duane Allman, those kind of Neil Young, if you want to solo like those people, you have to start with the basics of this. And then over the years, you slowly learn kind of like all the other secrets that it contains inside of it. So cool, man. Like I said, it's been a pleasure teaching you. You're welcome back anytime when life settles down, and I look forward to seeing you again. All right, take care, man.